and welcome to Clean Water Conversations, the podcast where we have casual discussions about creating clean and clear waterways right here in Lancaster County. I'm Ken.
Hey, everybody. This is Allison.
Allison, happy Halloween.
Yeah, it's time for spooks and ghouls and trick-or-treating.
Hee-haw! Sorry, I love Halloween. When you went trick-or-treating when you were a kid, what was your favorite candy to get?
Oh, it was a debate, internally debating between Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and peanut M&Ms.
Okay.
Thankfully, I never had a peanut allergy. I did have a chocolate allergy growing up.
Which does not jive well with the two candies you just mentioned.
Exactly. Those things were post 12 years old. Apparently, the allergy went away.
Oh, my goodness.
How about you, Ken?
I'm also at a tie between Reese's Peanut Butter Cups and Kit Kats.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now, do you still go for those?
Yes. Yes, I sure do. Not much has changed. I go to the store and buy them rather than, knocking on someone's door because that would just be weird.
At this point, yes.
Yeah. There is a lot of awesomeness.
Yes.
There's a lot of things going on.
In addition to chocolate.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we've had a lot of events recently.
Yeah.
You presented at a couple of them.
A couple lately.
Yeah.
We had a really exciting one at the Watershed Forum. So the annual event for the Chesapeake Bay groups to come together that's hosted by the Alliance for the Chesapeake Bay at the National Conservation Training Center, which is just a beautiful place at this time of year. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So grateful to be a part of that and got to talk about the stream delisting strategy.
Nice. And then we had MS Forum, which is not an acronym. That's the name of the event.
Buzz you.
You can't buzz me on that one. You already buzzed me on what that one derives from already. So
there's your challenge, listeners. Go back and find that episode.
That was on October 21st.
Yes, the event was great.
And full partners meeting was just a couple days ago.
On the 29th, we all had breakfast together.
Yes.
On the shores of the Conestoga River.
Fun stuff there. Lots of good stuff.
Well, and it's such a great time to get all of our local partner organizations together. We only do it twice a year. As you said, there's so many other events happening right now with funding, Connect and Preps, and CAP applications, the Countywide Action Plan. That's what it is. Our CAP coordinator team members, along with Land Studies, the Lancaster Farmland Trust, and David Miller Associates. So pulling all of those applications together to send in to the Department of Environmental Protection. It's a great place that we get to be the leader with the local decision making. But yeah, deadlines, those are going in today.
And you have something going on presenting tomorrow.
Right. The Hourglass Foundation has a monthly lunch session, and tomorrow clean water in Lancaster County is the focus area. So really great to be with that audience as well.
And that's November 1st, just in case you don't know what tomorrow is. So.
Sometimes I know what tomorrow is, but
I don't usually, but So we have a really cool episode with a really fun guest.
That's right.
It's Jill Whitcomb from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. You're not going to catch me in that acronym either. and it's a fun discussion.
That's right.
Let's hit it.
Let's do it.
So you have a story. I'm very curious then. Tell us about your background. Like, where'd you grow up?
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in Edders, Pennsylvania. And a fun fact about Edders is it's not really a town. It was actually based on the name Edders is a post office in Goldsboro. So we always kind of joke that we grew up in a zip code. So the name just stuck. So it's a post office in Goldsboro, historic, back in the 1800s or early 1900s, and the name just stuck.
Oh my God!
So the post office took that name on because of that local piece?
Well, the post office was actually, so this is kind of the local story, is that there was a post office in a tavern. And it was named Edders. It was named after a person.
Oh.
And so they put a post office there so that people could mail, from there.
The tavern.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's called Edders.
Okay. Sounds
named
good.
after a bar. Far out. I like it. So along that same vein, what drew you to conservation then?
So where I grew up, I had a stream in my backyard.
Mhm.
And so my friends and I would play in it. You know, we would
Yeah.
just always go out and play. And I'd also walk my dog. We had dirt roads along where we lived too. And
Mhm.
we'd go by, you know, crop fields and farms. There were some guinea hens that lived in this area too. So it was just kind of like a fun thing to be outside all the time.
Yeah.
And my dad's family were Mennonites too. You know, he wasn't, but his family was, and they came from Lancaster in Lebanon. And so he would tell my brother and I stories about growing up farming and being outside. I always enjoyed nature and animals and plants.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Did it take you to a specific education?
Yeah, kind of. Oddly enough, I was better at other subjects than I was at science, but I liked it more.
Okay.
It's more interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'll just go for biology.
I
General
remember
enough.
thinking that and then being like, oh, wait, I actually am no good at chemistry. So let's look at ecosystems.
Right.
How things work together.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? I like plants because they don't really talk so much.
Is that what kept you then in biology? Like your background in farms and animal interest?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, I didn't know that there were agricultural
Yeah.
classes or courses anywhere. So I remember thinking, I was like, well, I'll have a wide swath of options if
Right.
I
That makes
go
sense.
for biology
Yeah.
and see what I like. But yeah, ecology,
Yeah.
ecosystem sciences, that was a thing.
Yeah.
I really
Same
liked.
thing. I was like, I do not fit this pre-med thing. So
Can't you picture me in pre-med?
Oh, boy.
Hi, I'll be your doctor. Oh boy. Hey, before we go any further, let's get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
In a slightly different way by doing an icebreaker.
Oh.
So your icebreaker question is, what fictional family in a book or a movie or a TV show would you want to be a member of, and why?
Oh.
The gears are turning.
she's got this look of joy on her face.
Ooh. I have to say The Simpsons.
Okay. That would certainly be a fictional family.
And why they always seem to like come back together. You know, like they might be going off in all different ways. And, you know, Lisa's the intellectual and Bart isn't. And, you know, Marge always tries really hard and Homer actually does too. You know, but like, you know that they love each other.
Yeah.
Like they care about each other, even if it's somewhat in an odd way.
Yeah. But-
And also the Halloween.
Love it. Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
And they never age.
Right, exactly.
Well, that's the best part right there.
And Marge has blue hair. I mean, how
Very
can you
tall.
How can you beat that?
So 2 questions. Would you be one of the existing characters or would you be Jill? And would you have blue hair?
Oh.
Ooh.
Well, I would probably be Marge because I really liked her Chanel outfit
Nice.
that she had. So
Good reasons.
I want Marge's Chanel
Yep.
outfit.
So getting back to the real conversation here. Not that wasn't a real part of the conversation, mind you, but so at one point you worked at the Lancaster County Conservation District.
Yes.
Welcome home. You're back in your home building.
Yes.
Tell us about that time, what you did and how it launched you into where you are now.
Sure. Fun story. It took me 3 attempts at getting a job here. 3 separate times of interviewing for 3 separate. Well, I didn't even interview the first 2 times. I just applied.
Oh my.
Oh, wow.
So I think I might have interviewed twice and applied 3 times. But yeah, it took me 3 times of getting a job here. So I always like to say that because it shows that I'm persistent.
It does, yeah. Motivated, too.
Right, exactly. Right. I knew what I wanted.
Yeah, there you go.
But after interviewing for that 3rd time, the district manager at the time, he contacted me and said that the job changed slightly from what I had applied for, which was the ag tech or nutrient management technician, to include grants coordination. So I was, I think, the first grants coordinator for the conservation district. And I was hired early in 2010. And my job was to focus on reporting for the agriculture grants, because the watershed specialists, they had their stuff covered.
Okay.
But it was more like for the agriculture program. So the things that we would go for DEP, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. So we were, oh no!
Sorry.
No!
So close.
We even spelled out National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. I was so proud of myself for that one.
So DEP stands for?
Department of Environmental Protection.
Yeah. That actually hurt me to press the button on that one. It really did.
Darn it. So anyway, my job is to help to report for those grants and to also apply for them. So putting together the applications. And I had the phase 1 and phase 2 Chesapeake Bay watershed implementation plans on my desk that I would cite in my applications. So like I had to get to know these plans so that I could say, well, it's in this plan. This is what we're going to be doing. And this is how we're going to be doing it. I also, part of my job was to help facilitate, take notes, set agendas for the newly formed Conservation Foundation of Lancaster County and the Lancaster Clean Water Consortium.
Yep.
So, when they would have meetings and things like that, I kind of served as their secretary for that. I administered Penvest funds. So that's the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Investment Authority.
Not an acronym.
Not an acronym, an abbreviation.
An abbreviation.
And the Conservation District sponsored a lot of agriculture projects on behalf of consultants and landowners. So that was also part of my job. And then I would report to the board of directors. And so with that, I learned the ropes in agriculture, conservation, and obtained my nutrient management specialist certification too. So just spending a lot of time observing, learning from other peers and colleagues, how to sell conservation, how to read the room when you're talking to farmers, because I didn't grow up on a farm, but there's a certain way of talking to folks about things and about conservation. And so that was kind of what launched me into my career, and just being able to work with other people, I think really helped expand my horizons and let me see how much people can do when they work together. Like when you guys work together with other partners and building. So I might have started in that role, but clearly it's like ballooned and it's blossomed so significantly with the foundation and the Clean Water Partners. It's fantastic to see how it's grown under your leadership.
Thanks.
Allison.
Well, and likewise for you, your work has now taken you much farther than Lancaster County, all over the state. What are some of the things that you have seen where Lancaster has inspired good work? Like you gave some examples of what the district and the foundation have done. Are there places you've seen that elsewhere where Lancaster has inspired good work? Or are there places that we should be learning more from?
Well, I can tell you that not only within Pennsylvania, but across our state borders, Lancaster has really spurred a lot of interest and enthusiasm. Just the way that the partnership has pulled together a collaborative group of like-minded people, setting them on a strategic path, setting that vision, the common goal.
Yeah.
Really, I think people are so used to working in their own silos and saying, oh, well, we work with partners, but working with someone and actually collaborating and not being in competition is really just, I think that's what's elevated the Clean Water Partners so significantly, and people see how that works, and they want to do that in their area too. So I have seen a lot of lessons learned, things that you all have done here that people are able to take in other places and apply to what kind of serves their communities the best.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, we have some amazing stories of that locally, but to know that the ripple effects are being felt elsewhere.
Yeah.
It just continues to tell that impact story.
Oh, absolutely.
Documenting those pieces. I love the podcast to be able to do that and be able to showcase individual projects, but also then whole initiatives like what you guys have done from the state perspective, and knowing that our work here is a part of that. It's really...
Well, seeing what you all have done here has been very inspiring and has really, I think, again, elevated Pennsylvania's efforts toward the Chesapeake Bay, but also locally.
Okay.
So kind of under that same vein, the countywide action plan is a product under your team's leadership. Project is a project under your team's leadership.
Well, it is a product too.
That is, that is true. Fair point. Tell us about the initial goals of that process and how you would characterize it in terms of the collaboration we were just talking about.
So I can tell you that we had a vision that was always the target, right? It's sometimes you have to set a target and be very focused on that, right? And the target was to ensure buy-in at the local level. That was it. So how do we do that? And at first, in some areas, it was a bit of a hard sell.
Yeah.
Sure.
Asking people to trust the process, trust the people leading the process, trust that if we work together, we would get to where we wanted to be. That was a lot to ask of people.
Yeah.
And our team knew that we had to follow up and follow through. It's one thing to say, well, we're committed to providing you support. It's another thing to actually follow through with that.
For sure.
And we knew that if people believed in what they were doing and we provided the resources to take them to that next level, that we would get to that inflection point where everything would come together. And I just read a quote from John C. Maxwell, one of my favorites. He said, when you make a commitment, you create hope. When you keep a commitment, you create trust.
Ooh, I like it.
Well said. Yeah.
And I know, you all have been really focused on, the speed of trust and Stephen Covey and I think one of your recent posts was about trust and collaboration. And that's really what makes it all work.
Yeah.
It is.
You can't
it's hard
do this
to
without trust.
Yes.
It's relationship building. That's what we keep hearing over and over again. As people from the district staff will go out and they'll talk to farmers and landowners, and the trust, as you just said, that is extended to say, yeah, go ahead and make this change on my land is huge. Is huge, but it impacts so many people downstream.
Yep. Is that really different than, you mentioned phase 1 and phase 2? So the whole process of the countywide action planning, I'm hearing you say that trust was one of those determining factors, but can you describe kind of the 5 years later impression of the CAP process? Because it's not what you experienced in phase 1 and 2, right?
Yeah. So it took us a long time because we did the countywide action plan process in phases. So with the pilot, we did a lot of learning. And then with tier 2, things got all turned upside down with the pandemic and how we were going to actually do that outreach and that trust building.
Oh, yeah.
But we were able to overcome those challenges because honestly, while we may not have all been in the same boat, I think we were weathering the same storm. So that commonality, we were all trying to figure out how to communicate with people and with each other, virtually or whatever. And I think now the local buy-in is there. And I've seen it especially in Lancaster County, but in all across the watershed, in northern counties, because they get to see this is meaningful to us. This is meaningful to the community. And yes, the Chesapeake Bay is important, but the primary focus is on the investments in the communities.
Yeah, I think that was one of the major determining factors that got people hooked initially, but then committed to it longer term, is when the messaging included things like, here's your number, but you can write the plan to reflect whatever community goals you have. So if that nitrogen goal, you can get there by putting in parks, and that's what you need to make sure there's benches for people. Okay, great. Then write your plan that way.
Exactly.
So we were able to do it with that local control and the local priorities, but also have the numbers, have the specifics that are bay-driven numbers, then kind of integrated locally.
Yeah, and being able to use data to help make those decisions and honestly identify where the data was missing. It really helped to see, oh, we know we did more than this. Why isn't it showing up here? Like, well, you have to report it to us in order for us to turn it into data and metrics. And so I think that really helped to drive the whole like, oh, well, if we do good things here and we report it, then it will show up and we'll be able to then report that out to our stakeholders, our, elected officials.
Yeah. Well, just like you said with the common goal that Lancaster has, when we had the cap, it was a tool that we could use to rally everybody around it. It was something we wrote collaboratively. It was something that we could then share back out and everybody use it for their own grant applications or explain that, use it to help explain to a funder, to a supporter, why their participation in this collaborative thing, like where it fits in, why does it matter? And I appreciate the way that DEP gave us that local decision making, but I will also say that Lancaster kind of took it to the next level with a published document, a PDF that had some interactive components to it. It reflected things like those shared values of the network. But I think I'm going to answer my own question here. Over the 5 years, I think that's been some of the shifts of like, we didn't anticipate using it that way when we first, I'll say, accepted the invitation to write it, because we were like, I don't know about this. What are we getting ourselves into if we write this? But I think that's one of the places we've been able to grow as a network, but also work collaboratively with DEP through that process. So,
in doing research into your history and education and everything, I saw that in 2020 you received both the Governor's Award for Excellence and the Secretary's Employee Recognition Award for Leadership. This was in 2020. This was at the beginning of COVID. I mean, what was the most challenging part of your job at that time?
Oh, you're having me relive it.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So I'll say that there were two very challenging parts, and I think both of them helped drive me and my professional growth and development and leadership, and also I think what we're doing here itself. So one challenge, very significant, was the level of frustration that I felt regarding what I can only describe as disbelief that from people outside of Pennsylvania in what we were capable of accomplishing. I took that very personally. I was so highly frustrated. And, we had a strategy that we knew would work. Like, it wasn't like, oh, well, we think this. No, we knew it could work if it was implemented, and it would work. And I think the reason why I took it personally was because I knew the people doing the work. Like, I knew these people at the conservation districts. I knew the people at the, folks out there doing this work. And I knew that they were like putting a lot of effort day in and day out in this. I was just very frustrated with this like disbelief that we were hearing from all sides, from everywhere. And so I finally had champions for data management systems. We just talked about reporting. Yeah. Historically, it was challenging to get anyone to want to report anything because nobody likes paperwork, right? But we were finally able to start tracking and demonstrating successful implementation. And, I think once our Pennsylvania partners like the Clean Water Partners were able to kind of drown out that noise with your success and through storytelling and real numbers and hosting people from outside of Pennsylvania to show and showcase
Right.
what's going on, see results in real time, that's when we started seeing a paradigm shift in kind of the attitude toward Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
So I would say in 2020, I was just very frustrated with that. And the other challenging part, I think, was more personal. I had to learn how far I could push myself before burning out.
Okay.
I was not sleeping.
Okay.
It was a challenging because I had so much and I
Yeah.
felt so much pressure. Failure wasn't an option.
Yeah.
And I also had accepted responsibility to oversee 3 statewide programs. So learning and supporting them and getting them, moving forward and doing the Chesapeake Bay again. It was a lot of pressure. So I think what helped me overcome those challenges were definitely my team and my colleagues, and we kind of banded together, and my mentors and my family, and just being able to be open and transparent and honest and vulnerable. That's kind of hard to be
Right.
sometimes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Help me be a real person and recognize and overcome these fears of failure.
Mhm.
And it does still show up, but now I can identify it and realize that it's an irrational fear,
Right. Yeah.
But that really kind of helped. But in an odd way, it did help kind of drive me toward being and help kind of elevate the
Right.
importance of what we were doing, because it is
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. Well, and don't downplay that you were also a full-time working mom,
Yeah.
trying to navigate 2 children through COVID. And oh my God.
Well, they
That
became
layer.
very self-sufficient, and my daughter kept me very well caffeinated. She really, really liked the Keurig. She liked bringing mugs of coffee up to me about every 2 hours. It was like Fantasia. It was like the mops kind of coming. I love her. But I was highly caffeinated. That might have been one of the reasons why I wasn't sleeping very well. She kept on bringing me mugs of coffee.
How exactly do you train your kids to do that? Because that sounds like a very useful.
Exactly.
So, what was the most rewarding part of your job at that time?
I think that just being able to see how much people were really willing to work together
Mhm.
toward new goals, it just kind of was one of those things where watching people find other people that they can work together with
Mhm.
and helping them make those connections and identifying strengths, that's really what was very rewarding to me.
Mhm.
And it was very people focused. I'm not a very people focused person. My personality is on the task side. I'm a task oriented
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
But so I think that's kind of like just watching it all happen and being able to reflect back on it.
Yeah.
What about you? What was your most rewarding part?
Of 2020?
Well, yeah.
Oh gosh.
Didn't expect that one,
Nope.
did you?
I think it's like you said, the momentum kept building, that things felt like they slowed down and we weren't able to do things at the pace we maybe had anticipated, but it didn't go away. People were still eager for these processes to improve, to see the local goals met. The action teams were really ramping up. We had this tool as the CAP to help get us there. So I think the most rewarding part was that the growth of the collaborative continued. And it was at a pace that we, as you said, we knew was possible. The people were doing the work. And it was also when we started to feel that shift of not just projects, but people and projects and the full scale of what we know has to be included to achieve the goals. So I think that was part of it. I think we also saw a big growth in our team here at the Clean Water Partners. It was in February of 2020 that I was able to bring on an additional staff person. And I am so grateful for Emily Smedley and the role that she played in helping the Clean Water Partners to grow as an organization. She and I were here for the year of 2020, and it was a really exciting time, but I am so grateful for where we are now. And I'm just so grateful for people like Ken and Megan and Christina and Alex and all of the people who have been part of the Backbone organization, because we do one part of this, but it's really the storytelling and impact of the whole network. So, that ripple effect.
Yeah.
So,
I was thinking about the impact of COVID on connections And the fact that we had this kind of structure set up at our level with working with multiple counties, but then with yours working with multiple partners, do you think that the opportunity and the ability for people to continue to connect helped drive that momentum forward? Like they could have just not, right? But they needed to connect with other people and they needed a common goal. The timing for all of this and the opportunity for people to work together towards something that they could find as being a common goal while we were all kind of sequestered
and kind of lost.
Yeah.
Like we didn't know what the next step was going to be. There were so many unknowns. So to have something solid, like a single common goal, a cap that gives us the basics that we're all aiming for, no matter if we don't know what the next thing is going to come at us from when we can be in person next or what the next funding ask is, but that could be the thing we all relied on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the network. That's the value of the collaborative,
right.
that was always there.
To me, I think one of the things as relationships go is that with different technologies coming on like Zoom, I mean, we still kept up relations, but I think that it really showed the resiliency of people. I mean, once we got past a certain point and kind of got, okay, this is our reality for the moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People were so innovative and came up with these clever new ways to meet and still get the work done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it really says something about humans that we will work around things and make things happen, and B, humans that are collectively determined to meet a specific goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and we had the benefit of being in the conservation space. That was one of the places people went for safety and a place of comfort during COVID. So the more often that we could have something outside, or the more that we could talk about preserving our open spaces so that we can conserve those resources later, it all tied back even more easily.
Yeah.
Jill, with that in mind, what are some of your leadership lessons at this point of the things that you now take into this new role as the acting deputy secretary of the Office of Water Programs?
So I am an extrovert, if you can't tell already.
I kind of figured
Get your
that
energy
out.
from others.
Yeah, I'm an extrovert. And I've found out that there are people that actually think before they say anything. I am not one of those people. It's like there is not a thought concept in there that doesn't come out of my mouth. And so I learned that sometimes I need to be quiet. And, that kind of active listening, right? Mm-hmm. And I always seek mentors in any capacity. And I learned something from a mentor, which was a powerful pause. That you don't always have to fill the space. You can take a breath and have a powerful pause. I also learned too is that I don't always have to have all the answers. That there are other people that have answers that we can seek out and go to. We don't have to be the subject matter expert in every single thing. And so as I was kind of moving up through the ladder, the management, I learned who the people are that have the answers and knowing that I can reach out to those people. And so building relationships, like we were talking about earlier, building trust, building positive rapport, making sure that you have those positive working relationships in the network. I'm able to reach out to someone that, hey, I haven't talked to you for a while, but I really need help with this. They're willing to provide help. So I think in those kind of things, I was just talking with someone earlier today about my management style. They were like, I'm not really used to your management style. I'm like, is it bad? Am I too overwhelming? And they were like, no, they're like, actually, they were so used to having to figure things out on their own for so long.
Okay.
Oh.
And that they know that I'll kind of open up the door to bounce ideas off of. I like to bounce ideas off of people.
Yeah.
because again, there's not a thought in my brain that doesn't come out of my mouth. So I talk through my thoughts a lot.
Okay. You got a really busy notes app on your phone where you dump it all to get it out of your head?
Well, so funny. Like I just keep it all up there, and I think sometimes it just gets a little bit haywire. But yeah, I think that's really how I like to operate: is identifying strengths, identifying where they're experts, and helping them kind of realize their potential.
Yeah. So you're in one of the leadership roles within the Department of Environmental Protection. So as a state agency, what is the real leadership role that you see them playing for guiding at the local level, but having to provide a statewide perspective?
Sure. I can speak to the Chesapeake Bay program aspect too, and the partnership there. We are the lead agency, the lead state agency for Chesapeake Bay watershed restoration efforts and activities. But that doesn't mean that we don't work with other state agencies. So we have a tri-agency with Department of Ag and Conservation and Natural Resources. And so we all work together and provide that leadership and where the niche fits. So Department of Ag, definitely they are focused on agriculture, conservation, natural resources. Secretary Dunn has been the champion of riparian forest buffers, not only within Pennsylvania, but I could tell you across the entire Bay watershed. She is the champion for riparian forest buffers. I see our role as helping to drive the partnership forward. We're talking about beyond 2025. What are we going to do as a program, as a collaborative of multiple states, jurisdictions, federal agencies, all of the thousands of partners that we have at the local level? What are we going to do? And I think it's really important that we are very clear about the fact that all of the work is done locally. I've said that before, and some folks in other areas didn't necessarily like that because they're like, we do work too. Yes, but when it comes to water quality improvement, when it comes to habitat improvement, when it comes to implementing the goals and outcomes of the watershed agreement, who does that work?
Yeah.
I'm not out there planting trees. I'm not out there designing manure storages. I'm not out there doing construction checks on rain gardens. Like, I'm not doing that. Making sure that we are very clear about the resources that need to be driven down to the local level and the ownership that we provide at that scale. And I can tell you that has resonated across the local government advisory committee and scientific and technical like all of these advisory committees, the entire Bay partnership. It's definitely resonated that we can't just be a top down.
Right.
There's a feedback loop that needs to be continuous and not just, well, we're going to tell you what to do and you're going to tell us what you did. It's, we're going to see how you're doing and provide you support and the resources, and you tell us what would make it better, what would make it easier.
That's a really different approach than it had been.
Yeah.
In that shift, you're seeing the agency then being in a different leadership role and receiving feedback in different ways.
Absolutely. And I think we know at the end of the day, we're the ones that are going to be seen as responsible for getting the work done. But how we go about doing it, we can't just continue to tell people what to do.
Okay. Yep. So how are we doing? Is Pennsylvania towards that 2025?
How are we doing? Well, I can tell you, and I don't know how familiar people are with the University of Maryland Center for Environmental Sciences report card that came out in, I believe it was July.
Yeah.
We have been saying that our water quality was improving at the river input monitoring stations at USGS or the United States Geological Survey. We've used trends analysis. We've been seeing it in the data that's been submitted. But finally, we're seeing it in this report card that showed that the upper bay, where the Susquehanna River basin drains into, was drastically improving. And overall, the score of the bay, while it's a C+, it was, I think, the highest it's been in 2 decades.
That's amazing.
Yay!
We've been sharing success stories from the project perspective, right? We've been identifying our whole kind of thing was people, projects, progress.
Mm-hmm.
We focus on the people, we focus on the projects, we will see progress. And so it has been coming together.
Yeah.
So I think that really demonstrates that we're moving in the right direction. We're not where we want to be, but we're making incremental progress, and going in that right direction is really the important thing.
Yeah, people always want to be on a winning team, and they feel that their participation, it really is making a difference immediately, but then also over the long term.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on team pollution, jump on over here.
Well, some of the teams that you have are taking pieces that came out of an ask that we were given from the Chesapeake Bay Commission. They prompted us to come up with the quote ideal process.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that your teams took a few of those pieces and are like diving in on the details. Can you give us some of the scoop on what's been happening?
Sure. So we have been working with, and by we, I mean actually other people on my team. So I have to give them the full credit for it. What we call progress teams.
Mm-hmm.
So last October, we convened a group of county partners and even state and federal partners to say, okay, we know what the challenges are. We've kind of hit the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. How are we going to develop the strategies for success that will move us into the future? And so for ever since January through now, there have been 3 progress teams focused on staff building and staff retention, technical and administrative assistance, and funding and grant coordination. So those were the 3 progress teams. And then each of those progress teams broke down into smaller working groups. And so they are coming up with not only what we need to focus on, but how and who and when and all of those, those things, like who are the people that we need to, is this a legislative or regulatory change? Is this a policy or programmatic change? And I can tell you that I'm really excited. They're pulling all of these recommendations together as we speak, and we'll be meeting in January again to kind of go over these strategies for success and how we're going to move forward.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I've heard very specific examples of the results of those teams, what it's prompted for things like simplifying the application process or making a common application that could be used across different agencies.
Yeah. So as far as the funding and the common application or the dashboard and those types of things, the Commonwealth Office of Digital Experience, or Code PA, has been working on this. So when this group was talking about these strategies, we were also hearing that Code PA was working on developing a dashboard or some of these things.
Okay.
And we made like I said about connections, we made the connections with other folks in the agency that were connected with them and said, hey, we have some really great ideas that we'd like to share with them. And they were all on board. They loved it. They wanted to hear these ideas to help inform these systems and these upgrades and the enhancements. So again, timing was couldn't have been any better, because they were like, they knew that they needed to work on something, but we were like, here are some very specific recommendations that are coming from a very large group of people on what could make it better. So that's
a good
one
fit.
example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are trying to establish the narrative as it relates to the Bay deadlines, and really push all the work that has been being done by our partner organizations all around the state. What is an important part of our local narrative progress we can help amplify?
So I'm going to go a little bit back. When we started out with this stakeholder engagement for Pennsylvania's Chesapeake Bay strategy, we developed a slogan: "What's great for PA is good for the Bay."
Yeah.
Nice.
And it really helped us flip the mentality of, well, we're doing this for the Bay, or we're doing this because EPA told us that we had to, or like, it was like we have to do this kind of thing. To, what we do in Pennsylvania and in Lancaster benefits Pennsylvanians.
Right.
It benefits farmers, it benefits businesses, it benefits communities. And I think part of this narrative is we are building clean water infrastructure and flood resiliency through conservation practices, through stream corridor restoration and stormwater management. And we're doing what we are doing locally helps those downstream, but it ensures current and future generations have vibrant and healthy communities in which they live, work, and play.
As we mentioned, you are the acting Deputy Secretary, Office of Water Programs at Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection, DEP. As we already did Pennsylvania trivia with Adam Ortiz in episode 6, so I had to come up with a different kind of approach.
Ken gets a little creative with these things. So.
Well, I have to. I have to keep them entertaining. This is Pennsylvania in entertainment.
Oh.
So it's going to be TV, movies, music. All right, starting off, this television show was shot in mockumentary style and followed the workers at Dunder Mifflin, a fictitious paper company that was set in Scranton. What was that show?
The Office.
It was indeed The Office. Good job. This 1976 film tells the story of a small-time Philadelphia boxer who gets a very rare chance to fight the world heavyweight champion in a bout in which he strives to go the distance for his self-respect. It won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Do you know what it was?
Rocky.
It was indeed Rocky. You're very good at this. This television show follows 3 generations of the Pearson family as they navigate their lives across parallel time frames. The family lives in Pittsburgh in the flashbacks, and in the modern times, they live in Philadelphia. Do you know what that show is called?
Is it the Goldbergs?
Sorry, it's This Is Us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the show personally.
I'm scared to cry that much. I haven't watched the
I
whole
know.
thing.
I can't watch shows that make me cry.
This 1999 film was set in Philadelphia, starred Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment. The latter of two had an ability to see dead people.
The Sixth Sense?
It is The Sixth Sense. This 1982 Billy Joel song from his album The Nylon Curtain talks about the plight of this Pennsylvania town when the steel industry and the coal industry moved away.
Is it Allentown?
It is Allentown. Nice. That's it. That was our trivia. We kept it nice and short and sweet. Woo! Great job. So that's it. That's our show. We want to thank you so much for coming on and thank you for all the work that you're doing on our behalf with the DEP and for
continuing to elevate Lancaster and putting that narrative in front of a Bay audience. And thank you for being the lead for this work in Pennsylvania and then allowing us to be part of that story.
I love working with all of you. It is just, that's what helps me. I love to see the good work that's happening, and I love to be able to share success stories and good news stories with people and say, look at what's going on here. Why don't we do more of this? So thank you. You know, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for all of you. So thank you.
Go team.
Rah. Well, that's our show. We will be back in just a couple of weeks. Until then, take care.
Bye.
Clean Water Conversations is brought to you by Lancaster Clean Water Partners. If you have comments or suggestions on the show topics, please contact us at info@lancastercleanwaterpartners.com. Thank you for listening.